special edition of Locked On crossover here. Locked On Nationals, Locked On Padres. Javier Reyes, host of the Locked On Padres. I'm Ryan Clary, host of the Locked On Nationals podcast. And we thank you guys for making us your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Obviously, you can find Locked On Padres anywhere you get your podcasts, including over on YouTube. Search Locked On Padres, and as well for my show, just search up Locked On Nationals. But we come here today because, number one, I have to apologize to San Diego, but also the Nats and the Padres have a series starting tonight. We'll discuss that as they head into DC. What can we expect? And of course, Javier, we have to talk about the Juan Soto trade.
Yeah,
of course we do. But then also, I do want to start off. Can I apologize to San Diego?
It's good that we're starting off with this because the talk about Juan Soto is very much not going to be in Padres' favor. So we're going to have to talk about this, which I think is in Padres' favor. Look, I mean, when it comes to, we put on the YouTube, we have the thing over on the, depending on, it would be on the listeners, the viewers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Have they become a rivalry because of this? Look, I'm a believer that a nascent rivalry is still a rivalry. Like, I think that that's fine. I don't think we have to be like First Take and act like, hey, well, that great World Series, well, it wasn't as good as this one over here. Or, hey, I really like Anthony Edwards. Oh, yeah, well, he's not Scottie Pippen. So why are we talking about it? You know what I mean? Like, we don't have to only compare it to the best and make it Yankees Red Sox all the time.
Of course.
We'll see. I think that if something happens again, I think we're cooking. You know what I mean? Then we might be cooking, but it could have been a one-off. And all in all, though, I do appreciate the apology.
Yes.
It was, if anything, it really did activate us. It woke me up, right? Like, I was like, let's go. And I just thought it was so ridiculous. I've always hated unwritten rules. I've always hated this really bad culture problem that baseball often exhibits, where it's just like, oh, well, he set it towards our bench. Okay. He did for, maybe he did for a little bit. So what? Like, what are we doing? The NBA.
I know.
The WNBA All-Star game a couple days ago. Someone's just like talking smack. Like, not everything's so personal, right? And baseball players like to talk a big game when, in my opinion, they're some of the softest people that you'll find on planet Earth.
That's true.
As exhibited here. And also, like, Keibert Ruiz, who I hate for different reasons, by the way.
He's a Dodger. That's why.
Dodger.
Yeah.
And I'm still convinced. We said this the last time I was on your pod. I'm still convinced that Mike Rizzo, they had some sort of chip and they activated it during that trade deadline, and he was a sleeper agent for the Dodgers. I still cannot believe that they just threw in Trey Turner for fun. I cannot believe it to this day. But yeah, man, it was a crazy moment, and it was a really exciting game. And by the way, exciting game. You have the Profar incident home plate, then the Machado home run right after that, which of course launched every Padres fan into just bliss. But then the Nationals fought back. The Nationals have been like a really solid team, and you see, I think, the pieces. You see where they're heading to. They're not one of those teams that are stuck in nowhere. This is a team that had to really sell off. They had some of the worst contracts in baseball. They still currently have one of them. They were able to rebuild. And we're going to talk about the Soto trade later, but yeah, man, still appreciate the apology. That was a wild series of events last time.
It was. And of course, before we get into today's show, this episode of Locked On Nationals and Locked On Padres is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah. The right stay can make you a fan of any city, including San Diego, even your rival. So check out Booking.com for your stay today. So yeah, we kind of talked about it here, Javi, and just getting into it, I've always liked the Padres. It's not like the Padres are a fun team to watch. And also it's they're so good for baseball. I don't know if you're an NFL fan, but with the Chargers leaving and everything, the Padres kind of stepped in and said, well, yeah, we might not be a huge market, but here, we're going to spend and we're going to act like it. We're going to make moves. We're going to make trade deadline pushes. They have done everything in their power, in my opinion. And that is why I've always kind of loved them because it's not like it's a small market, but it's not the biggest market. It's not LA. It's not San Francisco. And it's probably not even Washington, D.C. But you guys are spending crazy money. And that is a very good thing for this sport because you see Pittsburgh, you see Oakland, teams that are smaller markets are like, oh, we can't spend. We can't do this. And San Diego's like, no. In order to win, or in order to at least try to win, spend some money. sign your free agents, be aggressive. And so I've always liked the Padres in the way that they've kind of gone about things, but we'll kind of get into more of that later on because I actually have a question about AJ Preller.
Okay.
With you guys. Like, I don't like, you know what? Actually, let me just ask that now.
Let's just do it.
Let's just do it now. Sorry. This is off the rails already, but this is what it's like with the Padres and the Nats. Yeah. It's unpredictable. That's what you're going to get on this crossover today. So what is like the thought on AJ Preller at this point?
I think Preller, I just think he's the funniest GM like ever. Like, I think he's hilarious in a lot of ways. That's where I'm coming down on. He's a walking paradox because in some regards, like I talked about this on my show yesterday, people could go check it out, where like in a vacuum, they kind of totally won the Juan Soto trade, not the Nationals one. My apologies. The one with the Yankees. Like they got not only Kyle Higashioka, who's been really good and has been like a solid catcher. He's got a WRC plus of about 117 right now. He's slugging like Barry Bonds. Will it last forever? No. But even if it wasn't what he was doing right now, just a quality backup catcher. You get a couple arms in Brito and Vasquez. And most importantly, you get Michael King, who has been like 5th in ERA in baseball since May. Ever since he started to figure things out. And then Drew Thorpe, the prospect they got from this, they basically flipped over to get Dylan Cease. So all in all, Cease, King, Higashioka, and then some two depth pieces. That's a pretty incredible return and one of the better returns we've seen in a while. Now, of course, this is where the paradox comes in, where it's a failure that you were in that position, though, where you had to train Juan Soto. And whether it be team needs, whether it be money, right? Signing Bogart, signing Manny, doing all these deals when you had the 25-year-old, Ted Williams on your team. That's to be blamed for. And then it's like, oh, well, Blake Snell, they gave up one of their top prospects did turn out to be anything, and they got a Cy Young season out of it. Like, he's had so many moves. He's so aggressive, but then he undoes it with some other moves, right? So we're trying to see how that plays out now. But you look at this and say, yeah, for every, Tatis trade, there's also a Clevenger trade. Or for every, Ha-Seong Kim signing, there is a, let's see here. There's a Xander Bogaerts in potentially. It's a little bit still, we got some time left, but there's definitely an Eric Hosmer type of signing, right? So it's just a really hard GM to evaluate. But at the very minimum, what you just attested to, it is awesome that this is a team who tries. There are too many teams in baseball, and forget the A's for a second. There's just teams that I'm convinced their entire existence is to just play spoiler. I'm talking about Milwaukee, talking about Cleveland, talking about Tampa Bay, although they're really good at what they do, right?
Yeah.
But I look at this and it's like everyone talks smack. They say, oh, well, the Padres, they spent $230 million. Meanwhile, the Brewers were this. I was like, buddy, the last time the Brewers were in the World Series, they were an American League team. You know what I mean? So, like, when did just doing well in the regular season? It's the Moneyball, like, brain rot. Everyone thinks that that's how you win, when in reality, outside Kansas City, it's basically not a replicable process. You need the building. You need the stuff that the Nationals are doing right now. But you have to have some signings. You have to do what the Astros do. You keep Jose Altuve. Other teams, they lose Altuve. You know what I mean? They lose Altuve. They trade him. They trade a Bregman. They maybe trade a Jordan or whatever. And then they keep one guy to keep everybody happy, right? That's what a lot of these teams do. So all in all, at the very minimum, it's just so cool that this is a team that has shown a lot of teams could be doing so much more than they can. The Baltimore Orioles could be doing so much more than they can. And personally, I think they will. They got a new owner. But I'm always mean about it. But I'm like, yeah, guys, Milwaukee's not going anywhere. Like, I'm not trying to be mean. I got love for them. Christian Yelich is actually like, it's really fun to see him have this like bounce back of his career after having some like down seasons. He was still good, but like really down seasons. It's cool. I like that Willy Adames, became a good player for them. William Contreras is fun, but it's like, yeah, your Joey Ortiz's and your Bryce Terangs and your Tobias Myers, they're not doing anything once it's easy to beat up on your division. So that's what happens every year. It happened last year. They got swept. They got swept in the first round. You know what I mean? They never go anywhere. And that's not to say that it's a guarantee to win, obviously, if you spend money, but you actually can. The analogy I always use is NFL right now. What do we see as we're both football fans? When you pay your quarterback, it's harder to build the rest of the team. You know what's harder, though? Not having the quarterback. You know what I mean? So, yes, paying those stars will make it harder for you to get those, depth pieces and whatnot. But you're not going to win at all without them. So you got to try it. So I'll forever, even if AJ Preller ends up having a disastrous deadline, even if the Padres miss the playoffs, I will just be so grateful that he made San Diego baseball easily the most exciting it's ever been since at least the early 80s.
Yeah, I think those are all great points as well, because like Preller is one of those guys where it's like I just give him credit for trying. Like the guy is trying everything, and also he's good at building. Like, I mean, he is good at developing prospects. Like, even since moving on from James Wood, CJ Abrams, guys we're going to be getting into here momentarily, but you still have Jackson Merrill. Like, you still have guys coming up to your system that have shown promise. Ethan Salas, he's a top 5, prospect in baseball. I mean, he's 17 years old. Is he still 17 years old?
I think he's 18 now, but you might be.
Still.
I don't know for sure, but yeah.
He was in Double-A last year at one point. Like, I love the way that the Padres kind of just do things. They're like, oh, this guy's really good. We're going to fly him up through the system. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But still, they're aggressive, and I love that about the Padres. But, Javi, let's revisit it for old time's sake. Come on. Let's do it.
Let's do the Juan Soto trade, man.
Let's do it. 2 years away, but still, let's do it. All right. Well, before we get into it, let me tell you guys about some of our very good friends over at booking.com. And of course, this episode of Locked On Nationals and as well as Locked On Padres is brought to you by booking.com. Booking.yeah. With summer travel heating up, especially travel for baseball games, it's time to explore those U.S. cities you always secretly wanted to learn more about. Yes, we're talking about your rival cities with hotels, bed and breakfast, vacation rentals, resorts, and so much more on booking.com. You might just find your perfect stay even in your baseball rival city. So, of course, maybe you're headed up to Wrigley Field if you're a Nationals fan. And, of course, I know the Padres are on an East Coast swing. Maybe you're headed over across the East Coast and you want to catch a Padres game in D.C. You never know. You can find hotels that look over stadiums. And, of course, if you are coming to D.C. from San Diego, I can tell you there's some very nice hotels outside Nationals Park that you can even look into the stadium with. So head to family-friendly resorts. And, of course, when you do that, Booking.com has so many choices across the U.S. for your summer travel this MLB season. And, of course, the right stay can make you a fan of any U.S. city, even your rival. So book today on Booking.com on the site or on the Booking.com app. Now, let me tell you guys about our friends, our very good friends over at FanDuel. And, of course, we love sports. We love them so much. I never want them to stop, but as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games and the sports aren't sportsing like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. Again, head over to FanDuel.com and make the most out of your summer. Maybe Jurickson Profar goes yard 10 against the Nationals. You never know. You can do that bet over on FanDuel. So FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Javi, let's get back into it because Nats, Padres, everyone always talks about it. Everyone still talks about it till this day. Nearly 2 years later, Juan Soto, the trade that was heard around the world. I mean, yeah. I mean, it's tough. You could see James Wood tonight, one of your guys. I know.
Yeah.
I believe last time we talked was last summer, and you called them like your beloveds, I believe. Like someone like your Mackenzie Gore, CJ. You're just like, oh, like CJ Abrams is an all-star now. But then again, like I want to get into this. What the Padres did was still right. Like you got Juan Soto, you got Ted Williams. But then again, what you gave up, like in hindsight, you're like, oh my God. Like you did not know that James would be a number one prospect in all of baseball at that point. We knew he was going to be really good potentially, but did we think that CJ Abrams would be hitting the way that he's hitting right now at 23? Probably not. But what do you think of the trade?
Here we go. So here's the thing. Just to recap the trade, just for anybody who forgot, it was Juan Soto and our boy Josh Bell in exchange for Luke Voit, CJ Abrams, Mackenzie Gore, Robert Hassel III, James Wood, and Jarlin Sazuna. So, first of all, shouts to my guy Voit. We loved him. He was unfortunately the sacrificial lamb. I think I made this joke last time on this podcast. Eric Hosmer, because of his no trade, he had to sacrifice. The last thing Hosmer did in his just hatred of San Diego was he killed Luke Voit. Like he murdered him because we couldn't, right? That was obviously that part's a wash, that part's whatever. I mean, it was considered at the time like one of the great prospect hauls and also one of the biggest blockbusters ever. Like, I remember people were comparing it to like the Ruth trade. You know what I mean? And I don't want to, if I want to go that far, but especially because we didn't know, I don't think back then how Babe Ruth was going to be. I think that with this trade, you're right. You still do it, right? But I think that what happened here is what I was mentioning before, where in a vacuum, it's totally fine what they did. The problem is all the other stuff. So in the case of Juan Soto, it's bad that they got there if they had to trade him. In the case of this trade, it's bad that you traded your future. And 3 of the players are not just players that can like fill out a roster, but they're really good players and they're young. And it's just it's really scary as a Padres fan when you see that. But yeah, if you had just kept Juan Soto, or hey, if they won the World Series somehow that one year when they had their magical run and they beat the allegedly very good Los Angeles Dodgers and then the Mets, that if you win the World Series that year, then this is all a moot point. Similar to like how the Nationals, like you have the Strasburg deal that was just brutal, but it's almost like but we won. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Exactly. So it's kind of a little bit weird, but for this, the way I view it is, it's them losing him in the first place. If you had kept him, I think at the minimum, this is just an even trade, right?
Yeah.
I think that, and also that is a testament to the Nationals getting as many prospects that even if the Padres still had Juan Soto right now, I'd call it an even trade, which is possible. He helps us win now, helps the Nationals for the future. The only thing that was a minor W for the Padres is it does seem like they sold high on Robert Hassel, who at the time
absolutely
was like, I remember like he's like a top 10 prospect in baseball. He fell off dramatically. Maybe he'll be like a 4th outfielder at some point, whatever. I don't want to project too far. He's still just 22. You never know what could happen. But all in all, they sold high on him. They did not sell high on CJ Abrams, James Wood, and certainly not Mackenzie Gore either. CJ Abrams, while he does have a little bit of a defensive thing, he's still just a baby. He looks like a baby. I really appreciated him smiling in the brawl. Not brawl, but like when the bench is cleared. And you can see, I think it was him and Profar or him and no, it was him and Kim. Like they did like a little thing or whatever. Like, buddy, like that's so fun. Him being someone who seems to have found more of a power stroke this early. I think that's what's more impressive. 15 home runs against 16 stolen bases. I don't think people thought this was going to be a 10 home run, 60 steal guy.
Same.
Right?
Same.
That's what everyone was projecting. So he's been great. And Mackenzie Gore, he's had a wild prospect arc. This guy was the number 1 pitching prospect in baseball once. Then he was off the top 100 because no one knows what happened. I still don't know what happened, frankly. And then he comes back. He's a little bit just a fill-in starter, I think, at first. And then this year, he's been awesome. ERA has been amazing this year. What has he got right now? Let's hear.
It's been inflated up here recently, like with Mackenzie Gore. But even then, like the ERA, and I'm sure as you know, Javi, like the ERA doesn't tell the whole story. Like he has gotten blown up, and it's kind of wild actually because I don't know if you saw this with Mackenzie Gore. I mean, again, you only really saw like a half season with him, and then again he was kind of shut down. And I know he started off really well with you guys, and back in 2022, but kind of fell off a little bit. But one thing that I've noticed with Gore is that, like, when it goes bad for him, like, it's, like, bad. Like, he's, like, walking the yard.
Yeah. So far.
Exactly. Yeah. Like,
got it in his head.
It snowballs for him, and it just goes all the way downhill. But I kind of wanted to bring up Robert Hassel in this, and I'm glad you did as well, because, like, Robert Hassel is, like, the forgotten prospect at this point in time.
Crazy.
And it's, like, like, he hasn't been productive. But it's also, like, here, as soon as he got traded here, his production fell off like immediately back in 2022, and he was like considered to be like the safest guy. Like I thought he was going to be on the opening day rostered last year. Like I thought there was a serious chance. Like he was already in Double-A in San Diego. Like he was hitting the ball really well. Just he showed a lot of promise. He really just did everything very well. Like he wasn't really great at anything in particular, but he was just a very good player and a very good prospect. But he's struggled a lot. Yeah. But also, to be fair, he has had like this hamate bone injury that he had surgery on last year, I believe, about a year and a half ago after he broke it in the Arizona Fall League. And since then, it just hasn't been the same for him. And he did get off to a better start this year, but then he's been on the shelf now for nearly almost over a month at this point. So he's kind of working his way back. And I don't know what to expect with Hassel, man. Like, because again, I thought he was going to be like the safest guy. Like this guy's going to be a very good major leaguer. So it just makes no sense. I don't know.
It happens sometimes, man. And I think that with Gore, I mean, the strikeout rate's great. Sure, he's got some things that aren't great. You would like to see him allow, maybe that's why he gets hit up sometimes, doesn't allow as many ground balls and whatnot. And then the last start maybe gets in his head a little bit. And gets in his head. Speaking of which, I went to a Nationals game, just a little anecdote, about a month ago. It was
in DC.
It was in DC. I was visiting a friend. And it was, I probably should have hit you up. I totally forgot.
No.
I totally forgot. And when we were there, I was at the game when they scored, I'm going to say like 7 runs in an inning against the Marlins. And it was like all singles. CJ Abrams actually gets thrown out going for a triple in that game too, which made me sad. I still root for him. But that was a wild game. And in that game, low key, I think it was not Abrams. It was, I forgot who it was exactly, but it was Gore and someone else got into an altercation in the dugout.
Oh, it was Nick Senzel, who's now DFA'd. Yeah.
Then everyone, someone texted me. They were like, "This is the weirdest fight ever." They were like, "What a bunch of like what?"
Yeah, I know. It made no sense whatsoever at all. But like, Nick Senzel's gone now at this point. He was DFA'd. And so, but like, he actually wasn't having a terrible season up until that point. But ever since then, like, the guy got like 1 hit after that and was DFA'd and was like, all right, we're ready to move on. Like, sorry, Jeff Carr from Locked On Reds, but Nick Senzel was not ours. I don't even know where he is anymore.
I don't think you'll feel bad about that. I think the Reds fans were like, we tried to tell everybody.
Yeah, I know. That's fair. But all right, Javi, we got a series tonight. We got a little preview, but we got to pay some bills here, Javi. So what do you got for us?
Right. First of all, I just talked about how I headed up to DC, and you know how you head around places? You need a car. Duh. And that's why eBay Motors is here to help you out. They're a fantastic sponsor of not just your show, but my show too. We've been doing stuff with them for a while. And what I like about them is they're really good for people who don't know anything about cars, right? So whether it's a roof rack, whether it's carpet, LED headlights, all that stuff. They kind of have everything, over 122 million parts for your vehicle, for your number one ride or die. They've got you in that regard. And they have this eBay guaranteed fit thing. They got the little check marks. So don't worry if you bought the XC428 tires and you should have got the 427 tires, and then it's at your house. You're like, what did I do wrong? Don't worry. They tell you if it is going to fit specifically your vehicle when you do that. So that's what's really great about eBay Motors. And best prices, all that stuff fits your ride every time. Because with eBay Motors, man, here's the thing. You burn rubber. You do not burn cash with them. So go check it out, guys. Keep it alive. ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions do apply. eBay guaranteed fit. That lovely thing also I was just mentioning. Available only to U.S. customers. But Ryan, we're not done. No. We got to talk about somebody very different. Not when it comes to cars or anything like that, but it is a wagon of its own. That is the massively popular daily fantasy game that everybody's talking about. Your grandmother's talking about it. Your cousin's telling you about it. It's Prize Picks, man. The number one daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. All you do is you pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. So say for this series, you could be like, I want over on tonight's game. I want over on Jurickson Profar bases, and I want over on CJ Abrams stolen bases, and then under on whoever the pitchers are going to be strikeouts, stuff like that. You could do all sorts of different stats. They don't have to be the same or anything like that. And guess what? With it, you can turn $100 into $10 million, right? Not literally, but seriously, $10 into 1,000 while watching Team USA rack up the gold medals this summer. You can make a prize pick lineup consisting of basketball, soccer, tennis, golf, all sort of stuff, guys. So all the different sports that they're going to have for Team USA, you can go check that out. In as little as 60 seconds, you can set that lineup. That's the other thing. It's quick. So go check that out, guys. And they've got some cool promotions. Every Tuesdays, they lower select player stat projections to help your lineup better fit. And then on Friday, you can get your entry fees back if you have a losing lineup. They got everything, man. I mean, my God, Prize Picks. They got you covered. They're great, man. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB to like them even more, because with that code, you get a first deposit match up to $100. That's code LOCKEDONMLB on Prize Picks for a first deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy with Prize Picks.
Speaking of that easy, It's not that easy because we do have a Nats Padres series starting tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Randy Vasquez against, at this point in time, to be determined. I believe it could be DJ Hers for the Washington Nationals, but we'll see what the Nationals do then. And then in game 2, Matt Waldron, who is filthy, just filthy. He dominated the Nats the last time through against left-handed pitcher Mitchell Parker. And then game 3, you have Dylan Cease versus Patrick Corbin. So let's get that out of the way. Dylan Cease is probably going to carve us up. Patrick Corbin, you guys will probably have 10 runs off him pretty easily. I mean, he's Patrick Corbin at this point in time. You know him. And you love to see him.
Patrick Corbin.
He is Patrick Corbin. So he is Patrick Corbin. There's nothing to preview there. But going into this series, Javi, I mean, the Nats at this point in time, we're about to sell. Like, that's what I expect. But this is kind of a big time for the Padres because, like, I don't know what you guys will do at this point. So,
yeah,
it's kind of a must-have series for you guys.
And this is the thing. While you joke, I will say, first of all, about Patrick Corbin, the Padres are 20th in baseball in terms of batting average against lefties. This has been a problem for them for most of the year. They've had some ebbs and flows. And then in terms of he's saying, don't worry, man.
Don't worry.
In terms of WRC plus, they're 16th. So yes, their offense is very good. It's better than the Nationals. It's better than a lot of teams, but it's not impossible. And most importantly, forget the lefty thing. Forget that nerdy nonsense I just gave you. The Padres theme this year has been 2 steps forward, 2 steps backwards every time. And it tends to happen to the teams that they quote unquote should be, the quote unquote mediocre teams. And I'm being serious about that. This is a team that beat the Dodgers on national television. And what did they do? They got swept by the Rockies right after that. You know, they have a great series against the Braves. What do? They get swept by the Angels, sans Mike Trout. Mike Trout ain't even there, and they're still getting swept by them. So in theory, based on the trends that have been happening, they just won this series against the Guardians. We were making fun of them in the first segment, but very good team this year. What would happen based on prior stuff is that they would lose 2 out of 3 or lose all 3 in this series. They've just been really hard to get a vibe on, right? Like, you don't know when it's going to happen. It always happens to teams that you think they should beat, you know? Very, very weird stuff for the Padres.
Yeah, like, and with the Nationals as well, it's kind of been that. But then again, like, this year has overall kind of been a success, really, for the Nationals. Like, they've been a lot better than what I've expected. I mean, CJ Abrams kind of breaking out, having a very good season offensively as well. And even then, like, defensively, like, his metrics aren't great, but like, you know, this is kind of like the old school way of doing things, I guess you could say, but like, he passes the eye test. Like, he does make a lot of very flashy plays. And you know, it's kind of weird because, I mean, as you know, CJ Abrams, blazing speed, he doesn't have very good range defensively.
Yeah.
That's like one of those things where I'm like, it doesn't really make all too much sense, but still, I think CJ Abrams, like Mackenzie Gore, James Wood now, like, that's what this is about for us. I mean, I look at the box score. If James Wood has 2 hits, if CJ Abrams has multiple hits, and if Mackenzie Gore goes 6 innings pitched, giving up 1-2 earned runs, like, I am a happy camper at night. That is really what I look forward to. And I do want to see some step ups from other guys out there, but I don't know. Like, as you said, the Padres and the Nats have like this weird history. So like, it feels really like it's really random. Like, I just don't know what to expect. But one thing is for sure is that it'll be a fun series, Javi.
Absolutely, man. And look, you know, even Jesse Winker, who we haven't talked about, probably a big trade piece. I think seems like a lock to get traded at the deadline.
Absolutely.
You know, he can hit 134 WRC plus this year, and he's not as dreadful, I think, against lefties as he has been in the past. His splits, I think it's 2021, are some of the funniest splits I've ever seen for like a regular. It was like 48 WRC plus and like 200 against righties. So he was overall, like, it was a good season, but it was very funny. I think it's going to be interesting, though. I will say that with some of the pitchers for the Padres, Cease might be entering good Cease mode, right? He's been a guy that was really, really bad through June. So while I was just talking about Michael King, Dylan Cease was awful basically through basically the entirety of June, bounced back in July and has been awesome, delivered an absolute gem the other day, and then was even better the day before the previous start when I think he had like 27 total whiffs on his pitches. So he's can be a little bit weird, right? Like, he could be a little bit Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, but it's mostly by month. So I'm hoping that what we're going to do here is that Cease is going to have a good game. Waldron, He's just fun to watch. I forgot. Did he pitch against the Nationals in the last one? He did, right?
He did, yes, and he shoved against us.
Okay. The one thing that's going to be interesting about Matt Waldron is, knuckleball is a little bit of a novelty. There's a reason why people don't throw as much anymore. Could the Nats potentially do better against it the second time? That'll be something to look out for. But all in all, it could be chaotic, right? The series could be chaotic. I think based on how the Padres have basically been run, their attitude, I don't expect any sort of retribution thing. I think they're way too focused on making the playoffs and just winning games at this point. And even when they've been bad, they just kind of haven't done anything. They've kind of surprisingly let stuff kind of just roll off. Even back with the Tatis 3-0 Grand Slam, right? They were kind of like, whatever. And then what'd they do? They broke the Grand Slam record basically after that. So I think that you're not going to see too much there. Honestly, I wouldn't even be surprised if you see some moment where they just kind of squash it or something like that before the game. So I'm going to be watching the pregame show in that regard.
Yeah.
It should be interesting, man, because these two teams are at totally different spots. But I'm telling you, do not be surprised if the Padres come out and Patrick Corbin goes 6 and gives up 2. You know what I mean? One of those starts that isn't that good, but the Padres for some reason didn't drive anybody in because lefties and because they're weird, right? So it could be very, very competitive for sure. Do not be fooled. And still, this team has some injuries, right? They still got some injuries to their rotation. They've got some injuries to their bullpen, even though their bullpen guys aren't very good. But even still, that's been a thing. So I can't wait, man. There's just something about this series that I've got a good vibe for. I think it's going to be fun. And the Padres really need it. If you're a believer in strength of schedule, they play Baltimore and then they play LA after this. So they want to try and get out ahead. And if they are going to have that 2 steps backwards, let's do it when it actually makes sense for once. Instead of you know what I mean? Oh, you lost to the good team. Okay, yeah, that happens sometimes.
Fair.
Not getting swept by the Rockies and the Angels, So
yeah,
we'll see how it pans out, I guess, man.
So you're saying there's a chance?
I'm absolutely saying that. I promise you.
All right. Well, Javi, it's always fun, man. I'm Ryan Clary of Locked On Nationals. He's Javier Reyes from the Locked On Padres podcast. We thank you for making us your first listen. And of course, you made it this far. Thank you so much. Enjoy this series, and we will catch you on the flip side. Go Nats, Javi. Go Padres for you. How about that?
How about that, man? Amen. We'll see what happens. Can't wait.
We'll see what happens. Catch you guys. Have a good one.